and there's basically, you see the proximity with which they border the Arab houses. It's only maybe 50 meters, 100 meters at most, but as you can see, completely different lives. I mean, it's almost like Switzerland in the settlements. Right, this is also in Derbzia. This is a water reservoir that my friend Dr. Fadi took me to, and he'd been playing there as a kid. Now, if I can just, I think there's a point here. These people over here are all Arab villagers, locals, and these were Israeli tourists here. The tourists were actually, they were quite friendly, but the majority of people who come to visit this reservoir from the Israeli side are settlers. And they basically, this demonstrates how basically they can take whatever land they want, almost at a whim. They basically show up in 3 or 4 vans or cars with their rifles and machine guns, because the Arabs are supposedly so dangerous. They're just kids in old villagers basically who live around here. And they basically force people off the reservoir for the day so they can picnic with their families. Dr. Fadi had been playing there as a kid, and he mentioned to me that he expects in the next 2 months that this will be taken forever from him and his fellow villagers. This is outside the A&E. It's a very, very small entrance, and there was like a very narrow corridor which led to the actual trauma unit itself. This is a lull in the day, I believe, and the corridor would be usually packed around midday to about 7 o'clock, when people would bring relative after relative, and you'd have maybe, I don't know, at least 5 or 10 relatives per patient who came in with the patient, who were all screaming at you to try and save their family, which is understandable, but it makes working a lot harder. This is a kid, her mom's x-ray I just took. Right, this is, some of you who were here before the talk started, this is the Imam of the local Al-Aqsa Mosque. I think somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the third holiest site for Islam. These are people all outside because they could not get into the old city where the Al-Aqsa Mosque actually is. This is outside on the road, just opposite, and the Imam is preaching to them. I've got a video to show that. But the people standing in the background, as you can see, the uniformed, armed people are all Israeli police and IDF who were on high alert during the Friday prayers, basically, because there had been a number of recent clashes recently. This is that guy, you can't see that clearly over there, but he's a medical student from Al-Quds University in Jerusalem, and he just showed me a mural somewhere in the old city. That's me dressed up as a chicken. Made Ramana just to completely break things up. This guy was basically, it was just before Eid, I believe, the day before Eid, and this guy was standing outside a shop, advertising a shop, dressed up as a chicken. So, you know, as you do, I just asked him, like, if I could I asked him if I could take a photo with him first, and then as we started talking, he spoke really good English, and eventually I just worked up the courage to dress up as a chicken, basically, and scare people on the street as a kid. So yeah, those are the photos I wanted to show you, and you know, that just illustrates again the history for those of you who know. And those of you who don't know, this is the UN partition plan on the left, just before the State of Israel was created, and the darker area indicates what was set aside for the Palestinian people in the West Bank, Gaza, and an area of the Golan Heights. And as of 2000, I'm sure this map is out of date as it was 10 years ago, this dark area has been reduced to such small patches. The line, I believe you can kind of see it on the 2000 map, is the area originally given to the Palestinians. And it's been severely eaten into, as you can see, by settlements and illegal appropriation, and the wall which was constructed and is still being constructed in the West Bank. That's a website, a blog basically, which I made, and you feel free to look at that. I posted about 5 or 6 accounts. Yeah, Tom.
What sort of stage is the wall? Like, is it completely encompassing? Is it?
It depends which area you go to.
Is it just around the West Bank?
It's primarily in the West Bank, yes, but then the Settlers Council has a lot of influence with the Israeli government, and they will basically call as chicken anybody who says that the wall should not be constructed or should be restricted to 1967 borders. So the wall is basically constructed in and around settlements, and as some of you may have heard, that cuts off Palestinian families from their farms and their agriculture. It's really quite horrible. So yeah, just show a video briefly. I think this first one should be Deir Ebzia, the village outside Ramallah. Get the lights. So yeah, this is the congregation basically outside with the imam. And as you can see in the background, those are all Israeli security personnel. This is one half of the street, and the camera will pan over basically and show the rest. More Israeli uniformed personnel all over there. Those are all Israeli personnel letting a crowd of very tightly controlled Palestinians into the old city. I had one video of the Al-Aqsa Mosque as well, because there are seven entrances to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which Israeli personnel have barricaded basically, and there's about 20 personnel at each gate. And as you try and get into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, I wasn't allowed because they ask you phrases from the Quran to prove that you're a Muslim, apparently. You can see that on the one hand, of course it's an affront to Palestinians. It's severely restricting Muslims from all around the world. It's restricting their right to the freedom of religion. On the other hand, however, their other intention is to prevent a repeat of the massacre which happened at the Ibrahim Mosque in Hebron, where a uniformed reservist in the Israeli army, who's ironically a doctor, basically went in during Friday prayers and opened fire with his M16, killing 30 people. And they know, the Israeli authorities know, if that happens or anything like that happens again, that's the third intifada begun, as far as they're concerned. And this should be Deir Ebzia, I think. Okay, so this is Dr. Fadi. And the volume is... Okay, so he's basically pointing to Arab villages in the hills surrounding, and that's the major Israeli settlement. And you can see, again, the concentration of trees, the relative wealth that has compared with the neighboring Arab villages. Sorry, my shitty digital camera doesn't retain sound while zooming in and out.
And he said the trees are greener over here because there's no water and the settlers grab it.
Settlers grab it, I suppose. Cool, yeah. Start or like finish with something. Good, this is a wedding outside Hebron, in a small village.
No, beautiful.
So, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I could speak for hours just on various threads. I'm sorry this talk has been a bit haphazard, but I'd be happy to answer any more questions. And over to Dr. Swee.